Now, the government releveraging hit a limit. It started in May of last year, at least became cognizant, the world became cognizant of it in May of last year, and that was when Greece all of a sudden lost its ability to borrow in the capital markets and has been relying on the other EU members to continue to fund them. And then it has spread through the periphery of Southern Europe. And in the United States, that amount of debt also spread here too, but in a little different form. It didn't come to the United States because we lost our ability to borrow more money. It came because we have elected politicians that have as their mandate to cut government spending and to cut debt. Think the Tea Party. I'm in the camp that this has to get done anyway at one point or another. It's not being forced upon us right now like it is on Europe because they've borrowed too much money and they're looking at default. We're more voluntarily doing it through the type of politicians we have elected, and that's why we had the crisis with the debt ceiling limit 2 months ago. But nevertheless, we are pulling back on that as well too. So what has been the big driver of growth over the last 25 years, economic growth? It's been debt. It's been the ability to borrow more debt. And when we worry about inflation, we raise the cost of credit, raise interest rates to slow it down. What has the government been doing over the last couple of years, especially the Federal Reserve? They've been trying to encourage everybody to take out a loan by dropping interest rates as low as they possibly can, to zero and in some cases even lower if they could. And what has not been the response by the private sector to that has been to take out a loan. If you take a look at some of the statistics like mortgage refinances, we're at an all-time low in mortgage rates. We're nowhere near an all-time high in mortgage refinances. The Fed can continue to drive rates as low as they want. They are not going to get the response that they want out of that. So out of this period of no debt growth, we've had quite a bit of volatility in the economy. We had the Great Recession. Then we had a very putrid expansion. Martin Feldstein yesterday in the FT the Wall Street Journal yesterday was quoted as saying that this was the worst expansion that he's ever seen in his life, what we've seen since 2009. And the answer, I think, is because there's been no debt growth since 2009. We've been stalled on our debt growth, and now the economy's turning lower. The red line on this chart is the Economic Cycle Research Institute's leading indicator growth rate. It has been falling again. And for those of you that follow Loxman over at ECRI, he's been out in the last 10 days or so, even with an op-ed this past weekend, saying we are in recession right now. I've been a big fan of their work, and I've been a big fan of their leading indicator, and it's been going much lower, and it's well below the zero line. The blue line on this chart is the Chicago Fed National Activity Index, an indicator of 85 economic indicators. Think of it as a coincidental indicator. It too is below zero, meaning that the economy has been growing below trend. Maybe not yet recessionary, but it is coincidental to the ECRI, but definitely showing you that things aren't good. So the answer is, why haven't we had that big snapback? There was an economist from the 1960s and 70s, Victor Zarnowitz, who used to coin the Zarnowitz rule. They used to say that an economy's recession's recovery is in proportion to the decline that you just had. So if we had the worst economic recession in 70 years, 2007 to 2009, we should have had among the best recoveries in 70 years. Nothing even close to that has occurred, and we might be going back into recession again here just 3 years later, largely because we haven't had any debt growth at all. Now let's